Rafah, an unprecedented tragedy unfolded as Israeli airstrikes claimed the lives of at least 45 people, marking one of the deadliest assaults in the region's history. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, addressing the Knesset on Monday, confirmed an investigation into the devastating strike that occurred the previous night.
In Rafah, we have already evacuated about 1 million non-involved residents, and despite our best efforts not to harm the non-involved, unfortunately a technical failure happened last night. We are investigating the case. We will present the conclusions, because this is our policy.
The deadly strike has drawn intense condemnation. The victims, many of whom were women and children, were among the displaced living in tents that were tragically consumed by flames. The genocidal murderers, who have martyred more than 36,000 of our Palestinian brothers and sisters so far, rained missiles and bombs yesterday on civilians in a refugee camp in Rafah, which they declared a safe zone. This massacre, which took place after the call of the International Court of Justice to stop the attacks, once again exposed the bloody and treacherous face of the terrorist state. Despite facing scrutiny from the world's top courts, including a demand to halt its Rafah offensive, the Israeli forces continue to operate in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military announced an investigation into the civilian deaths caused by a strike on a Hamas installation targeting senior militants. This attack, one of the deadliest in the conflict, has pushed the overall Palestinian death toll above 36,000, as reported by the Gaza Health Ministry, which does not differentiate between combatants and non-combatants. Mohammed Abu Asa, who responded to the scene in Tel al-Sultan, described rescuers finding people in dire conditions. We pulled out children in pieces, young and elderly people. The fire in the camp was devastating, he recounted. We heard the sound of bombing close by, and we ran over here to the camp that is full of displaced people, full of children, women, young, and the elderly. This camp is known to be for the displaced. It is known that almost all of them are displaced from the north. We found the camp fully on fire in a very terrible way. We called the civil defense to come, and we found scenes that were unreal. Body parts and dead bodies that were melting. The Palestinian Red Cross Society stated that the camp was designated by Israel as a humanitarian area. The neighborhood had not been included in the earlier evacuation orders from the Israeli military. Israel defends a deadly strike on a Rafah camp, asserting it targeted terrorists while acknowledging civilian casualties.
According to initial reports, a fire broke out after the attack. These terrorists were hiding underground, and it would appear that there were civilian casualties. We're looking into this. I will say that it was definitely grave. Any loss of life, civilian life, is grave and is awful. We seek to go after Hamas and limit civilian casualties, and we will investigate if an investigation is needed. This is an unfolding story.
These airstrikes occurred just 2 days after the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to cease its military actions in Rafah, a city where over half of Gaza's 2.3 million residents had sought refuge since the Israeli incursion earlier this month. Many remain in the area, though some have fled.